One, because the world is your oyster. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Maria, and in this very quick video I'm going to answer the question: should I move to the city as a newly qualified nurse? Should I move to the bright lights to fulfill all my dreams, to fulfill all my desires? So I've spoken, just, casually to, a couple of my nursing colleagues who have moved to the city to work as a newly qualified nurse. I've also spoken to other nurses who've moved from different countries, for example, Australia, US, India, Ireland, Jamaica, Barbados, Nigeria, South Africa. And there are a handful of reasons as to why they, and including myself, work in the city or have moved to the city. It is because they just want a different experience. Working as a nurse in the city is going to be completely different from working as a nurse in the village or in a local town, and that really comes down to the points that I raised earlier. Just because the city, I'm just going to say London in general because London sounds more natural than saying the city, but it's just because London is so diverse. There's so much money in London in terms of like research, in terms of investments, in terms of like businesses, not just within the nurse profession but with any profession. If you work in London, you are going to attract a higher salary, especially if you work in central London. So the agenda for change, there's one for the outskirts of London, there's one for in London, and there's another band for inner London. And if you work in inner London, you're going to be making a lot more money than if you're working in Swindon, or if you're working in Leeds, which is another city, or if you're working in Bristol, which is also another city. So yeah, one reason why people come to work as a newly qualified nurse in London is because you attract the higher pay. However, I will say that as well as attracting a higher pay, the cost of living in London is significantly higher. So, for a lot of nurses, they may think, okay, I want to work in London, but rather than living in London, some of them may just commute back and forth to London. So don't think that you have to work in London or you have to work in one of the bigger cities, especially if you know that when you look at the cost, the financial side of it, that it might not make the most sense for you. You can always commute back and forth if you want to. And just because you make the decision to work in London or to work in a city doesn't mean you have to stay there forever. Like, come on, you can just do it for a year and be like, deuces, I'm back to Birmingham, deuces, I'm back to Swindon. Just because you work in a city doesn't mean you have to work there forever. And just because you work in a village or in a town doesn't mean you have to work there forever. The world is your oyster. You have feet. Move! Different nursing specialities. Oh my gosh, like if you work in a town or if you work in a village, then guaranteed it's probably just going to be a very local district hospital. It's just going to be a very local community hospital. Whereas if you come into London, there are so many specialities. You can specialize in neurology, or you can specialize in neurology or whatever profession anywhere. But if you want like a center that's just dedicated to that, then chances are you're going to find it in London. If you want to be in an area where things are changing all the time in terms of new medicines are being trialed, or if you want to go more into research, or if you want to be able to experience how a certain type of machine works, then guaranteed you are going to have that in London. If you want to be a nurse and you want to work in the private sector, guaranteed you will find that in London. You will find that in the bigger cities. So if there's like an area of nursing, for example oncology, that you really want to work in, I know so many nurses who are like, I want to work in oncology, I want to work in oncology. Even when I was at uni, and I was like, okay, so where do you want to work? They all said the Marsden, the Marsden, the Marsden, the Marsden. You're not going to find the Marsden anywhere else, but you will find the Marsden in London. You will find places like the Marsden in bigger cities. If patients are really sick, or if they just need really specialized care, they're probably flying them over or transferring them over into the next city. For you, like I said, it doesn't have to be London. It could be Sheffield, it could be Nottingham, Birmingham, Cambridge. Now I'm just like naming all the cities. It could be Glasgow, it could be Cardiff. Patients who need very specialized care, they always step up to the next city. They don't ever step up to the next, local general hospital in the next town or in the next village. One is for a different experience. 2 is for the different specialities that you'll be looking for, and 3 is for the pay. So those are the 3 main reasons as to why you should. I hope you guys found this video helpful. My experience of working as a newly qualified nurse. So yeah, let's talk about my experience. So let's over glorifying working in London. Very colourful. Like, some of it has been so bad, like so bad, to the point that I haven't even spent